Well, what we are looking at today is Spirit is doing a new work. And Spirit is always doing a new work. Spirit is not about redundancy. Spirit is not about boredom. I have a beautiful, wonderful niece who one time told us how bored she was. Well, I have news for you. Now, she broke out of her boredom, I'm glad to say, because as we step into what is ours to do, Spirit breaks up all boredom. If you're bored, I would love to have a visit with you at some point so that we can help break you out of that boredom. Because Spirit is always doing a new work, and when Spirit is doing a new work, it stretches us. It takes us out of our comfort zone. It takes us beyond what is familiar. If I had stayed in what was familiar, that would have really been a miserable life, right? And sometimes people stay with the misery they know rather than breaking out into new ground. But if we give free flow to the Spirit, Scripture says that the Spirit blows where it will. If we are ready to go with that flow of Spirit, then we are ready to use the power of this month, which is the power of imagination. When I was a child, I was told, "Tim, that's just your imagination." And my mom would say to me afterwards, "That's not a bad thing." She would always encourage it, always nurture it in me. She never saw my imagination as being a bad thing, and I'm so glad for that. Because imagination is such a powerful gift that all of us have. The power to imagine, to envision. Now, it can be misused. The power of imagination is how the atom bomb was created, or how terrorist acts have occurred. The power of imagination is also how diseases have been cured, how the homeless have been cared for, how ministries to prisoners have occurred. It's from the imagination that this church in 1937 was started, because imagination, the power of Spirit, was speaking and brought forth that divine idea here. And each one of us are this great percolator presence of God bringing forth imagination. I want to share with you about one of my favorite history figures. One of them, I have a number of them, and also one of my favorite church history figures, Joan of Arc. In French, Jeanne d'Arc. Jeanne d'Arc. Joan of Arc, when she was just entering into being a teenager, was illiterate. She was a peasant girl living in France. And she began to have visions. St. Michael, St. Margaret, St. Catherine would come to her and talk with her and appear to her. And they would tell her about things that were yet to come. And so one day she went to the garrison, the head of the garrison, who was working for Charles. Charles was supposed to be the king of France, but the English and those who were sympathizers to the English had taken over so much of France that Charles just had a little itty-bitty part of the country left. He had virtually no power. He wasn't even able to be coronated, and he was about to lose what he had after all of his efforts. And here was this young girl who was asking the head of his garrison, whose name was Robert, "I would like to speak to the king." And Robert's like, "Yeah, whatever." I mean, that isn't the exact translation from the French, but basically that's what he said. He's like, "No way. I mean, who are you? You're some illiterate little peasant girl who want to speak to the king? Really? You have a message from God? Really?" So Joan of Arc said, okay, I'll tell you what. Let me give you in full detail what you will not find out about for several days. Let me tell you exactly what's happening in a particular battle. I will give you all of the details, what's going to happen. He's like, okay. So she tells him this. Several days later, a messenger comes from that battlefield and says exactly what Joan had said days earlier. I mean, it's history. And he's like, whoa. Now, he's thinking, what could it hurt, right? We haven't progressed on our own efforts. This girl claims to be from God, and as she's speaking, the French, their morale is going up, and they're like, yeah, we haven't been deserted after all. And so Charles says, yeah, let her come to me and speak. And so she talks with Charles. And Charles later stated, she told me things that were so private, I had only uttered them to God in prayer. And yet she was able to tell them my own words to me in detail. This is before Facebook. It's before, super intelligence and microphones everywhere. How did she know all this stuff? And so they placed her at the head of their army. She was advising their generals on what to do. And would you know it? They took back the entire country of France, chased out the English, and established Charles as king, and he was coronated, all because of this little girl who got these messages that she said were from God. Now, I love plays. I love George Bernard Shaw, and he wrote the play St. Joan. And in this play, in scene 1, we have Joan talking with Robert. I hear voices telling me what to do. They come from God. Robert, they come from your imagination. Of course, that is how the messages of God come to us. God speaks to us through those divine words. In John chapter 1, verse 51, Jesus is speaking to Nathanael, who is the apostle representing the power of imagination. In the other Gospels, he's called Bartholomew. Like some of us have 2 names or 3 names, depending on the context, okay? And Jesus told Nathanael in John 1:51, you will see the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. And this is a reference to the Hebrew Scriptures where Jacob sees this vision of angels going up and down on this huge ladder. And Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, says that those angels, angelos in the Greek, represents these divine messages that come to us through the power of imagination. That's how God speaks to us. As the play Peter Pan shows, some kids are taught, and it's drummed out of them, stop imagining. But imagination is one of our most powerful tools, because it is through that power that Spirit does a new work and blows a new breath and brings about some new work in us and as us. It's the power of imagination. So, we have this in scene number 5. And this comes from Charles, who was crowned king. Oh, your voices, your voices. Why don't the voices come to me? I am king, not you. Now, Charles did have a bit of a vanity issue. He wasn't perfect. He might have not scored real high on an emotional intelligence test. But, Joan of Arc saw him as the rightful king, supported him. And he wondered, why did the voices come to you? You're a peasant girl. They don't come to me. I'm the king. She said, they do come to you, but you do not hear them. All of us are these receivers of these frequencies, of this divine light, these divine messages. All of us, every single person here. You may have tuned it out, but it's still there. I don't know if you've ever been in a football stadium or a large stadium when the lights are all out. It can be very, very dark. Does it do any good to curse the darkness, or does it do more good to light a candle? If you light a candle, you can see it anywhere in that dark stadium because the power of the light overrides any power of the darkness. So instead of cursing the darkness, why not light our light? Why not be the light that we are called to be? And imagination shows us the way. Haven't you had divine ideas come to you? Ways of innovating, ways of doing new things, ways of doing something amazing. You know, I think of the prison ministry that we have here and how it touches people's lives. I think of our ministries to the youth, or keeping our grounds, or the various ministries we have in this church. And I'll talk more about one of those a little later in the message. Those are all ways to shine our light. Why complain? Someone, I like to greet people and talk to them, and one of them this morning, I said, how are you doing? She said, I'm doing well, and if I complain, no one listens anyway. Good. Why complain? We're here to shine our light. We're not here to tear down anyone else. We're here to be that light, and that is what Jesus called us to do. He said, you are the light of the world. And in what is called the Lord's Prayer, we were taught to pray, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What a radical, that Jesus. He wasn't just talking about the sweet by and by. Just suck it up and wait, till you get to heaven. That this place is going to be horrible, but just get through it. That isn't what Jesus taught us to pray or how to live. Jesus taught us to pray, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So the powers of imagination show us ways to reach other people. Another of my favorites is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says this, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Albert Einstein could not get to where he needed to go in mathematics and in his theories without using the power of imagination, because the kind of mathematics he needed to create didn't exist yet in the realm of knowledge of people. So he knew that imagination was even more important. He goes on to say, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Our imagination is a good indicator of what is yet to come. Has a good idea come to you at some time in your life? This morning. Fantastic. Have you or someone you've known ever said, when something amazing was accomplished or someone did some innovative new thing, have you ever heard or said to yourself, that was my idea. I thought of that years ago. But, I thought of that 5 years ago. And now someone went off and did it. How dare they? Well, everyone has the opportunity to download these divine ideas, but then we need to use the power of will to act upon them. We need to use the power of wisdom to understand what is ours to do. We need to use the power of strength to persevere. We need to use the other powers and put action to our prayers. Stop waiting for someone else. Stop waiting for someone else. All of God is present right where you are. All of God is present right there as you, with you, through you. All of God. You can't divide or diminish God. You can't like add water to God and make God more diluted. You can't. All of God is fully and completely present in and through and as your life. So when these divine ideas come to you, hey, sit with them. Meditate on that. See what is yours to do, and let that divine juice flow. Right? Spirit is doing a new work. You know, when I've walked around on this island, done a lot of walking, which I love to walk. I've walked a number of times up and down Waikiki Beach. And sometimes to insulate myself, I've walked past some of the homeless people. I've looked at them. I have felt compassion. I have felt, some sense of sadness. I've walked on. We sometimes insulate ourselves. But, when I was first checking out this church, late October, early November, when I went to the Unity Worldwide Ministries website and looked at the information that was listed there for Unity Church of Hawaii, it listed several of the different ministries and those that were envisioned yet to come. And one of them that was listed was Ho'opono. And as I began to read about that, and about the prison ministry, and about other ministries that are done here, I began to weep because I could see the presence of God in action. I could see the presence of God touching people's lives. And eventually, as I went through the process, at one of the services right here, I met Eric Butler. And, it was a deluge of information, and I was overstimulated when I came here as a candidate and since. But as I met Eric, I thought, I've got to get to Ho'opono. Ho'opono meets on Monday nights at 5 o'clock, a block or two down Montserrat Avenue at that beautiful little park. And it's a spiritual literacy program where people write down sacred texts or put them in their own language. And then a meal is shared together that volunteers here have fixed. And as I joined hands with the volunteers and with the homeless, I recognized we're all the face of God. It's not us and them. What do we do about the homeless problem as if they're an alien race? It's all us. We're all in it together. And I recognized this humanity, and I saw in them the face of God. The following week, some other things were going on. I didn't get to Ho'opono until later. Many of them had dispersed, and they were kind of dispersed across the park. And I thought, I doubt if any of those homeless people would recognize me. I'm walking through the park, and one of them says, "Hi, Reverend Tim." I'm thinking I only met that person once. And somehow as we look back upon each other, it's the divine looking at itself. And I thought of this song of Karen Drucker's, "You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. And as I see each one of your faces, and as I saw the beautiful faces at Ho'opono or wherever I've been, I've seen the divine looking back upon me, and I recognize what a great use of imagination that is to touch other people's lives, to reach out to them. We're here to help make this the world it was created to be, a world that works for everybody. We're here to touch other people's lives and not to ostracize based on ethnicity or faith or sexual orientation. We're here to wake up from our anesthesia and know that we are the divine in action. That all of these negative messages we tell ourselves about separation and lack and competition are not the reality. The reality is that we are all one. And I'd like for Eric Butler and the other volunteers with Ho'opono to please come up here. Francine and Johanna. We're on Facebook Live, right? And are there other volunteers here from Ho'opono? And I'm going to surprise you. Francine was coaching me this morning about what I needed to do and didn't know that you are our volunteers of the month. I mean, did we pull it off? I mean, we tried to really keep that secret. I mean, we had this whole thing going because Francine's in on the recognition of the volunteers. So we came up with other volunteers, which we will recognize at some point, and I signed it and all that. But we want to honor you and all of those. We have the pictures of the volunteers, Eric, Latrice, Francine, Cindy, Howard. And we are so grateful for the ministry that you do. And I don't know if just real briefly, Eric, if you want to say something, I don't know.
Briefly?
Brief.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to thank God for touching your heart and opening your eyes to see what we were doing down there. I want to thank and praise God for each one of you who got a chance to hear about it from the Reverend. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. And Eric will be down here at Connection Central. You have a table set up to give information about Ho'opono. And we have a little video to show them. Diana's going, oh, we're going to show the video now. So let's see this little video.
I can only imagine what it will be like.
We got the Bible here. We got the words from Unity here. We have non-religious material here. We got Buddhism, Quran, Vedas, Hinduism.
Is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance?
At first, when I started doing the work, I thought it was just copying. When I came to realize it wasn't, and then for the second part, I interpreted what they were saying and put it in my own books on how I applied that to my own life.
So, would you be willing to copy 24 pages for a place to stay?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your love.
Would this be of interest to you?
Now you gotta make them work. Right? You make them be covered.
Over and on, we'll reach down, we'll stand in your presence.
We need you guys to help us out. You know, without you guys, it's nothing.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric, Francine, Johanna, Ho'opono. And if you would remain standing, we want to give you a blessing. Let's extend our hands to Ho'opono. Repeat after me. We love you.
We love you.
We bless you.
We bless you.
We behold the Christ as you.
We behold the Christ as you.
God bless you for your work.
God bless you for your work.
Let's give them some love. Thank you. And that is an example of how we can use imagination in a way to touch the world. Not to curse the darkness, but to light our candle, to light our light. And we can make a difference. Listen to that inflow of Spirit that wants to do a new work as you. God bless you. Thank you.